Hello and welcome back to the 100 Day Art Challenge. This video is number 69 of 100 and I decided to change the medium and the approach for this couple of videos. It might be 3 in a row, we'll see how I do. And I decided to start doing a bit of portraiture. I've done portraiture earlier with oil pastels and the source material was the same, so I am going to credit once again the Instagram account called Earth's World. They are now on the screen and I will put a link in the description of their channel, of their account on Instagram so go and support them. I have them to thank. I'll be posting this image on Instagram and crediting them so they're well aware that I used their images as reference, and I very much appreciate it. I've been discussing starting to teach portraiture with a friend of mine, and she's a bit reluctant. She's far better than I am at portrait drawing in pencil, so I thought I would practice because we've been discussing how well you have to be, how well versed you need to be at portrait drawing in order to teach. And we have conflicting feelings with each other. I am of the position that so long as you know what the rules should be and you can give people tips, you can teach it. And I think she wants to have very impressive drawing before we start, which I can appreciate her position. Mine is more that you don't need to necessarily have a finished drawing yourself in order to teach others. You just need to know the beginning and middle stages in order to help pushing people along. And the end stage of your portrait can be decent, but it doesn't have to be perfect. And I don't know, we both have different approaches, and I think that she's used to being part of a session where it's more of a social group and she doesn't teach, and then she has a very good drawing by the end. And I'm used to attending those types of sessions and then surreptitiously teaching people who are sat next to me because they ask me why I know certain things and they don't. So I just tell them what I know, because what's the harm, even if they don't go looking for the other observations and insights, it's only going to improve their drawing if I can say the top lip's normally darker than the bottom lip, where there are eye sockets and things that will go in the face that will collect shadow, whereas things like noses and the brow and the cheekbones, those poke out so they'll catch light. Things like that are just obvious things to an extent, but for some people they just don't know these rules, so it's best to share the ideas and the little tips with everyone so that we all have equal starting place. I don't want me to have an advantage over other people. I'd like everyone to be able to draw at an equal footing and then develop their own style and personality through those tips and tricks. So what I'm doing with this is trying to finish a portrait drawing in the same amount of time that my friend had when she drew me recently, because I sat for her for 1 hour and it turned out being 1 hour 11 minutes and 11 seconds that I sat for. The reason I know that is that I put on an album by Lee Moses, and we listened to that album all the way through with no adverts on YouTube, which was great. And that was the time that I sat for her before I got up and moved. And and then afterwards we'd had this long conversation about the different ideas we have for portrait drawing classes, and I said that I will do the same. I'll give myself the same amount of time, but instead of having a model in front of me, I'm just going to draw from a reference and see how I do. This video is a time lapse of a session which was 1 hour and 10 minutes, which is pretty much the same thing, and it's fine. It's not as good as her drawing, it's not as well observed, it's not as proportionately accurate, but I think that it's getting the practice in there. And I got a feeling that if I were teaching a portrait class, no one would grumble because I'm not the perfect portrait artist. But I could be wrong, I don't know. I just feel as though it's about sharing ideas, not about impressing the attendees. But there we are. I'm not trying to denigrate my friend either. But at the same time, I've done another portrait since this one, and I only took 40 minutes and I got further along in my view, and I'm going to try to see how well I can learn portrait drawing more efficiently and try to get down important marks quickly to get the gist of someone's likeness as soon as possible, because an hour is great and an hour and 10 minutes is quite a long time. but you really need to try and get that in 30 or 40 minutes, because you will have a break in a 1 hour session, and sometimes you can't spend that whole remaining time drawing. Certain things can happen, like you'll need to sharpen a pencil, or you might receive a phone call, or anything can interrupt your time there. So that's why I'm thinking that the more I can push to try and make good decisions fast, I can become more efficient at drawing and then offer my services to people in a class. Saying all this, it sounds as though we're not going to revisit this conversation until next year, which is fine, but I may be once again out of practice by next year. It does take maintaining the skill set in order to really build on what you've learnt and what you value as far as this type of practice goes. It's quite different to the drawing that I was doing with the oil pastels, even though I felt like that did help me with making decisions fast and getting somewhat of a likeness, even if it's not exactly accurate. It's trying to get a good drawing out of it, even if it's not a one-for-one comparison. But yeah, I'm going to try and close that gap, because I think getting a better likeness is part of an important aspect of portraiture, and I've never really focused on that so much. I've always just focused on the rendering and close measurements, but not exact measurements. So I'm going to try and get more exact measurements if I can. But for the first few that I'm doing, they will be a little bit loose, and you'll see what I mean. I will show on the screen now. This is the reference that I'm using, and you can see it's quite different from what I'm actually drawing, but in certain aspects you can see a similarity, but it's not going to be an exact copy of what I'm seeing. It's just going to be inspired by the photograph, and that's not true portrait drawing. So I can appreciate where my friend's coming from with that. I still feel as though when you have a model in front of you, you close the gap for a likeness, and you have a better opportunity of capturing a more similar look in your drawing, because instead of having a frozen image, you actually have the person who you can talk to and familiarize yourself with the 3D form. And you don't really have that opportunity with the photograph that I'm using as a reference. But there we are, that's my opinion, and I could be wrong on that. But still, in portrait drawing sessions before, I have found that I've not truly satisfied the likeness to the model's satisfaction. So that's why I think it's probably something which would be worth working on, not for the model's benefit, but for the fact that you should be able to do that and make that choice of whether you want to do a drawing like this, where I've deviated from the reference, or a drawing like my friend's, where you're closer to the reference. So yeah, I'll work on that. But for these first few, it's just trying to get back into the swing of portraiture, and I enjoyed it. It was fun, and much easier than the life drawing sessions I've been doing recently, but all of that is fun as well, so I do like all of it. But yeah, this is the drawing which I've done, and I think for a first portrait I quite enjoy it. I hope you enjoyed this video as well. Try it out for yourself. Portrait drawing is a lot of fun, and I appreciate you watching the video. There is daily videos still coming up, so I have 30 more to go after this. But thanks for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow.